Codependence Anonymous, My Story by Andy D., page 129. The question comes to me why more of us do not share the truth of our existence. Fear was my answer. Fear of the others knowing me. Through Coda, I have learned the paradox that only through sharing my more vulnerable parts can truth and healing occur. Coda has provided me with many opportunities to face my fear and shame, to discover much truth. I am grateful to have this opportunity to share my experience, strength, and hope. Sharing is how I identify myself, and through my sharing, I hope you may also find some benefit. Please take what you want and leave the rest. I was born in a small town in north central Missouri. I left at age 1.5, and to this day have no idea what my birthplace looks like. I suspect that seeing it would kindle memories, preferably forgotten. Those memories were similar to many others in my life that I would rather not remember. A sad beginning, perhaps, but the truth is necessary to free me from the past. I have come to believe that pain and the associated difficulties and crises are required to attain lasting happiness in one's life. The pain becomes a door to healing. As I continue on my journey, the truth of this concept becomes more clear. My beliefs about my past do affect how I view my present. I now choose to see my past with less pain. The day when I have accepted my past in total, no longer holding any resentment, will be a graceful day in my life. There are the stories told about Jack in a hushed voice to me by my grandmother. Our family called Mom Jack, short for Jacqueline. My mother did not want to be called Mom. Jack used to let me, as a newborn, cry in my crib until I would finally cry myself to sleep. When I was a little older, we went to bed no later than 7 p.m. because Jack was fed up with me and my brother. I have no memories of any expression of affection, much less love, in our family, and there were no hugs or pats on the back. I remember Jack as unhappy. Things were never right. I believe I was unwanted from birth. Being unwanted, from my experience and from what I have read, leaves me with lifelong self-esteem issues. These issues are like chronic heart problems. With good practice, they are minimized, but they never go away. Our family moved to a large city early in my life where my memories began. I remember the house. My earliest memories are of being beaten, and I remember making the decision when I was 4 never to cry again, no matter how hard or how many times my dad beat me with his fraternity paddle. Jack was as cruel as Dad. She set me up for all my beatings with Dad. During the week, while Dad traveled, she would keep a list of my infractions, talking back, not doing what she wanted exactly when she wanted. When Dad returned on Friday night, she would read the list, and out came the frat paddle. Dad was a salesman for a big corporation. I was glad he was not home during the week. My history would be of little relevance, except that the behavior I learned manifested itself in some insidious ways. My 2 marriages and my deteriorated relationship with 2 daughters are the best examples. Through these, I discovered what dysfunctional family means. I found out what an addictive personality is all about. I found out what happens when a little boy named Andy does not get the love and nurturing he needs and deserves. As a child, in order to defend myself in the kind of environment I grew up in, I developed psychological defenses. Primary among these defenses is denial. Denial that the abuse occurred or that the abuse had any significant impact. Beyond the denial was the acting out of try and work out these psychological traumas. A good example of these defenses is my denial, not consciously, until after I was 40, that Jack was an alcoholic. Dad is an enabler, someone who made it possible for Jack to practice her addiction. Telling the whole truth about Jack and Dad was and is important to understand the true impact of my past. Dysfunctional families do lots of unusual things. Children get to play adult roles because the adults do not know how to act like adults. My early role was Dad. I got this part because someone had to fill the void created by Jack not receiving love and attention from Dad. I understand this to be called emotional incest. Jack and Dad never slept together. They always had separate beds and later separate rooms. As a child, I tried hard to please Jack, and then she set me up for beatings. The impact of inconsistent behavior and incest on trust are difficult to overcome. I have vague memories of being physically incested by Jack, but I cannot remember. Much recovery remains for me in this area. Trusting is hard for me. We moved to another city while I was in the 3rd grade, and then back to the previous city after 5th grade. I grew angry with my early role. Who would not? A new role began to emerge. I became the one who acted out all the family problems, the rebel. I was good at it. I started smoking at 11 and drinking at 14. I smoked a pack a day by 14 and still participated in sports. At night, I used to sneak out often. One summer, after my parents finally gave up on beatings, I was grounded for the rest of my life because I just kept sneaking out. During this time period, Jack and Dad yelled at each other often. No wonder I had a temper. Later I learned it was rage. I got involved with women early. I took the advice of grown-ups and did not get a girl pregnant. I was 14 when I first started borrowing Jack's car. She went to bed early, and Dad was out of town. My rebel role continued when my family moved to the West Coast in 1965. I was 16 and living life in the fast lane. In retrospect, I think about how different my life would have been if I had put my limitless energy into educating myself or helping society. Next was college, then quitting college, followed by Vietnam, then back to school. The achiever role was starting to develop. I would prove to the world and me that I was okay. Achievement was a compulsive cover-up for low self-esteem. I would get a BS and MBA and a CPA. Success in business was important. As my responsibilities grew in business, work replaced partying as the preferred method of escape. I became a workaholic, just as effective as any other addiction at encouraging denial and preventing intimate relationships. During this time, 2 marriages failed. The estrangement of my children, which occurred due to my second divorce. My ex-wife is from a dysfunctional family, too. Subtly began the process of recovery for me. Through trying to understand the pain my children were encountering due to divorce and what I could do for them, I came to understand the pain of my childhood. The moment at which that occurred was simultaneously one of the most painful and graceful moments of my life. It became clear that I had learned few skills for interpersonal relationships. My family of origin, where I learned my skills, only understood the use of control and manipulation. Love, growth, kindness, and encouragement were not present. No difficulty or argument was ever resolved in our family. Rather, an edict was issued by one of the parents. I learned to tell people what to do, not to work with them or accept their differences. That is how I learned to relate to people. My history is no surprise, accident, or stroke of fate. Shortly after that graceful moment when I began to truly understand my childhood, a failed relationship became the final straw. My life was unmanageable. I needed help and a safe place to share. The pain finally drove me out of isolation and into a Coda meeting, which was the second movement of grace. The first 6 months were painful. One day at a time was the only way I survived. I spoke the serenity prayer over and over. My weekly meeting became the one thing I looked forward to. This was early in the Coda movement. Sponsors were not recommended yet, so we all worked together as collective buddies. Then came the next moment of grace. I felt the need to become involved in a 12-step study group, but none was available. God acted through me, and a group formed. Within a short time, 24 of us divided into 4 subgroups or families, and we were on a 6-month path to work the steps in detail. We met weekly and used a workbook to structure our efforts. As I write, my heart feels the love and struggle we shared. The power of the steps is indescribable to me. Working the steps encourage growth and compassion, and my passage to genuine self-love had commenced. One member of my family and I had adopted each other as brother and sister. Truly, this is and was my family of choice. The family that Coda offered had so encouraged the love within me to be found, and during the time of this study group, I was to face some of the most difficult times of my life. Without Coda and my family, I am unsure what I would have done. I sometimes think my higher power provided me the challenges to help me learn to ask others for help, a task which continues to challenge me. The steps were the beginning of finding a spiritual path. That path has let me know myself enough to leave behind a career that was motivated only by the desire to make money. I have traveled extensively, an act of cleansing. My travels allowed me time to consider my spirit and those things which brought me joy. I returned and began the process in earnest to decide on a new career. Many thought my efforts were commendable. I was often in pain from trying to control when and how my higher power would direct my path. Patience and taking time to listen is so difficult for me. Yet it is another opportunity to learn that my higher power does not operate on the time schedule I desire. As I write, my shame for not developing a more intimate relationship with my higher power surfaces. I can now feel this and not run away from the feeling. Patience that my recovery happens at its own pace and is not comparable to others is a truth difficult for me to accept. Many of the truths of recovery are difficult to accept. Letting go of old beliefs and loving myself are still challenging tasks for me. I have truly had to accept my powerlessness over my false beliefs and inability to love myself. Only with my higher power's assistance does a chance for change and growth come. Spirituality is the core of all the 12-step programs. My knowledge of this core continues to grow. Developing a relationship, the relationship discussed in the 11th step, is and has been an ongoing process. I have some interesting revelations regarding my higher power. First among these was accepting that anger with my higher power was okay. Being angry at God, someone like my parents, just did not seem possible. Then a friend said, "What kind of relationship would it be if anger was not allowed?" Allowing my anger has deepened my relationship. Feeling the anger has also allowed me to have what I call a pre-memory experience. On 2 occasions, while being angry, I came to feel that I had severed my relationship with God at a very early age. I felt that as a child, I reached the conclusion, really a choice, that I could not be worthwhile if all these terrible things were happening to me. I felt that God would not allow this to happen to a little boy unless he deserved it. And so I need a spiritual recovery. As I approach my 4th year in recovery, I see how far I have come. My recovery is an ongoing process. Many days I do enjoy the process, and some I do not. The time to work my way through the steps is again upon me. My higher power helped me to know it was time again. Another long-term relationship had failed, at least temporarily. For a change, I am feeling the sadness and doing my best to grieve the loss. Since crying is such a challenge, I was proud when I could shed genuine tears and tell my inner child I loved him, that somehow we would find a way to prosper. I was able to hug my former lover and feel little, if any, anger. She too is a child of God, and our challenges make her no less unhealthy, and I trust with the help of my friends in Coda and other 12-step groups that I am all right and can feel the pain. I still fight feeling less than, but no longer believe that my value comes from another. When the Spirit is within me, when the light burns inside, I know that I am worthwhile just as I am. I know that one day at a time, I can trust that my life will work. Not only work, but prosper. My new adventure into the steps will center on my powerlessness over myself, my powerlessness to change beliefs and love myself unconditionally as I deserve. I see more than ever how my addictions and control have kept me from letting go, and codependence and my addictions have indeed been cunning, baffling, and powerful. I have used work, play, alcohol, food, and compulsive thinking to keep myself from feeling. Fear strikes me as the feeling I most avoid. As I look deeper, fear is everywhere. Fear of intimacy, fear of success, fear of failure, and fear that I cannot even succeed at recovery. Perhaps the fear of being with myself intimately and in peace is greatest. I long for the few days I remember as a child where I could lay in the grass and watch the clouds go by for hours, being at peace with me, accepting where I am at this moment and enjoying it, are goals I would like to achieve. I believe I will achieve that by turning over my care to a higher power. I have recently read The Big Book from AA. I recommend it for all. The Big Book has been the inspiration for me. There is much wisdom between its covers. I find that where it mentions alcohol, I can substitute my codependence or any of my compulsive behaviors. I have discovered my other compulsive behaviors to be so cunning, baffling, and powerful, and yet I have seemingly overcome them. As a late adolescent and in my 20s, I behaved as an alcoholic, yet today I drink little. I have quite a number of various ways of acting out. As the layers of the onion peel back, I can see that I am attached in an unhealthy way to my way of suffering and my false beliefs. This vision is how my higher power has helped me to see it is time to work the steps again. Next to the steps, I would consider sponsorship the second most important aspect of recovery. Because I was an early CODA member, and for reasons I'm probably not yet willing to inventory, I did not have a sponsor until recently. Part of this was due to my difficulty finding a sponsor within CODA. My recommendation, regardless of the program, is to find a sponsor. Take your time. Follow the time-tested recommendations of all the 12-step programs. Make mistakes and then move on. The benefits of sponsorship are real. I look forward to the day when I feel the confidence to act as a sponsor. Some would certainly have acted sooner than I. I know my ability to be of service will come when the timing is right. I leave you now with the hope that you will be fearless and thorough. Face your truth with righteousness, with righteous honesty. And finally, accept your powerlessness over other people and your compulsiveness. Let go that your higher power may bring grace into your life. Laugh too. Allow yourself to enjoy life. These are my hopes for you and for me. I also hope that my our higher power's love will fill us with self-love so that we may live each day in peace and love, and thus be free to be of service to our fellows.